Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a couple of talks now leading up to lunch. Firstly, we've got Dana and then Joe Cook. Start off, Dana, who's a technical product manager at the Overture Foundation, Overture Maps Foundation, is going to talk us through a global entity reference system for Leeds. I'll hand over right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I want to give a shout out to Matt Travis and Dennis Bauer. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, for making Overture sponsorship of this conference happen and for, getting me here to give this talk. So how many folks have heard about Overture Maps? That's great. Okay. How many of you have used our data? Some fewer? Okay. All right. The gluten-free Glee folks over here, I know are Overture Maps data users. So my title at Overture Maps is Technical Product Manager, but I very much think of myself as a geographer. And like every geographer who looks at screens all day, I fantasize about being out in the field doing more adventurous geography things. So this is me in Philadelphia, where I live, working on a balloon mapping project with a nonprofit group called the Public Lab. Unfortunately, they are no longer around, but their projects exist on GitHub. Balloons are better than drones, just saying. It's a great way to start a conversation with people in your community. Great way to get out there and walk and do field geography. So that's essentially what I did when I arrived here in Leeds the other day. I got off the train from Sheffield and started walking around and met up with a friend who's a musician. And I said, okay, what's cool about Leeds? She said, oh, music venues, theater venues. It's such a great place for that. So I took down some notes of music venues that she said I should go see, performance spaces. So this was my starting point. And I left these around for those of you who fantasize about being field geographers as well. They're out there. I've got more. So this is just really, really fragmented capture of the locations of these places. I thought, okay, I want to build my own custom data set of music venues. And then I want to compare that to what lives in our Overture Places data set. So I started with Charlie's recommended list. I found a couple of music and event websites. Leeds List was one, Time Out, that recommended other venues. I found an open data set on Data Mill North. I'm new to open data here. So I compiled these different data sets to put together my own list of music venues. And then I started walking around. So this place is really cool. It took me a little while to find it in the alley. At first, I thought it was that big thing that was under construction. And I loved that it had that list of all of the upcoming shows out in front of it. Okay, so what is this funny ID here, GERS ID? Well, part of what we're trying to build at Overture, in addition to compiling open, free data, is a reference system. GERS, Global Entity Reference System. And it's this really ambitious goal we have to assign a unique ID to every entity, everything on the planet. Well, not quite, everything that makes its way into our reference map. So buildings, places, road segments, mountains, streams, rivers, that sort of thing. So this is my GERS tour of a small group of music venues in Leeds. I found this place next. I loved the neon. There were a couple of dogs hanging around here. It looked really chill, even though it was the middle of the day. This place, there was an Arctic Monkeys poster, which was really cool. I don't think that they have played there any time recently, but a girl can dream of seeing them in a little club like this. All right, this place, super cool. And my friend Charlie had actually said some of these event music venues are in crazy, beautiful, historic buildings. And some of them are in these random places that look like nothing. And she's like, that's just Leeds. That's the cool thing about Leeds. This place did not have a list of upcoming music shows anywhere out front. I asked a student what it was, and she sort of shrugged, said, look at Leeds list, which made me feel good about consulting that as a data source earlier on. Instead, it had this price list of strange things that you might buy inside. And again, there's the GERS ID. Okay, so I mentioned that Overture's goal was to assign this unique ID to every entity that makes its way into our reference data sets, our reference map. Well, why? Because that makes it easier to do lots of other things that we want to do at Overture and that we want our community to do, like match data sets or conflate data sets. Everyone here knows how painful a spatial join can be. Like, this is the dream of a column join instead of a spatial join. But matching is hard. We've worked hard at it, and you can see here that we actually have two versions of the warehouse in our data set with two different IDs, slightly offset. One of them comes from Microsoft, and it is categorized as a beverage store, which I found really kind of amusing. And the other one is the one I chose, or the one that matched when I matched my custom music venue data set to what was in Places. That's the middle one. You can also see that we've got a buildings data set, and the building that the warehouse is in has a name property. Warehouse is pegged to that. So everything is sort of nicely aligned. We're going to hold on to that idea of the building being associated with the point and get back to that. Okay, so now back way up. What is Overture Maps? I was really pleased to see that a lot of you know what it is. We are this really kind of unusual foundation made up of big member companies, smaller member companies. I like to say that all of the lawyers, the corporate lawyers, got together and started talking to each other and cleared the way for collaboration among TomTom, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, which is kind of crazy. But once they created the space, this container for us with rules under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation, then it made it possible for us to consolidate map data pipelines on this shared infrastructure that's not owned by any one of the companies and publish these data sets available for free under an open license. We try our best to give them as permissive a license as we can. But we're also beholden to the licenses of our source data sets. So we don't just push through different data sources. We've got a quality and validation process. We wrangle them all into this shared schema. And we publish them as GeoParquet files, which was kind of scary when we went down this path in 2023. But now the engineers who made that decision feel totally validated that they did it then and that it was hard at first, because now it's become really a joy for a lot of people. You might think that this is some big tech thing, but I want to assure you that what we're building here has something for everybody. Okay, so just a little bit about our data. We group our data sets into these general themes. Everything you would want to make a map. Fun fact, when the engineers who started doing this, engineers, not geographers, wanted to publish the data sets, they said, well, do you think it's a problem if we do this without land or rivers or mountains or... My colleague Jennings Anderson, who is a geographer, intervened, and that's how everything else you would need to make a complete map ended up in our base theme. Below the theme level, we have things organized by type, and when most people are going to fetch data, it's that type they look for. So transportation has a segment and connector type. Places has one type, place, although this gives us lots of room to grow. So I'm here today to talk to you about this other thing we're doing. The harder thing, in my opinion, is building this reference data set. This isn't a new idea. I mean, we've all been around in mapping for a while. We've seen lots of different ID systems. What we're trying to do is make it global, try to make the IDs as stable as possible, try to build in some functionality that makes change traceable, and try to make it open. So Google might have the best places ID system in the world, but it's closed, it's proprietary. You know, if you feed into it or help them build it, you have to pay to get it out. Our idea is that if you help us build this, you can pull everything out, including an ID. We like to use the word GERSify internally. Do we like to use it? This is just what has come about within Overture. So we talk about GERSifying data sets. And again, Jennings, who is always out there on the talk circuit telling people about GERS, has said this is basically what our promise is. All of these features, or rather entities that get published as features in our data sets, will have this unique ID. It's a UUID, it's random. All of the features will have been matched internally. So they're coming from multiple data sources, and we have some pretty complex conflation processes in our pipelines. We have matching algorithms that we intend to open source. I can assure you that Overture would like to throw open the doors to almost everything. It's just cleaning up some tech debt and putting it out there in a form where it's actually usable. But basically, we're doing the best to keep that ID stable and to make an opinion about which entity, if there's an entity that spans multiple data sets, makes its way into our monthly published release. We've got some other artifacts that go along with this system too. A registry, that is the record of everything that's appeared in Overture by ID, and then some bridge files that will help you look at the entity that was published and try to trace back to the source data sets that went into it. I've been talking about places. I'm going to jump over to buildings. This is by far our most mature theme. And we've got data coming from a lot of different sources. As my colleagues like to say, we start with the data that people have created, and then we add in some machine learning or AI-generated data. And we've got a conflation order. This is perhaps something that could be tunable. But for now, this is what we've decided as a group. So maybe the Eiffel Tower appears in every single one of these data sets, or 4 out of these data sets. We have to make a decision when we're publishing which geometry we're going to use, which properties we're going to use. And this shows up in our sources field. I love the slide. So this is one of the cool things about Overture. This is looking across the border from Mexico into the United States, and it just shows you the diverse sources that end up in each monthly published data set. And we've actually expanded buildings. We have new data sources, including some data sources from local or regional entities. All right. Back to my Leeds music venue example. So how did I match the places? Well, this was sort of an artificial experiment. It was a nicely curated places data set, and I was able to actually walk around in ground truth and tweak the geocoding lovingly by hand. We can't do that at scale with our pipeline. So we've tried lots of different types of matching approaches with different levels of success. And it's something that we're tweaking all the time. We've got a couple of data scientists who've been working on this. And this will probably be the first theme matching algorithms that we go public with, because there seems to be the most interest in this. For my demo, I used DuckDB, which is amazing, and I tried first to just do a spatial join. Location matches were not great, then by name, then by category, and then I ended up combining all 3 in this hideous behemoth query that I will not show you. I mean, I could if you wanted to. And then it was weighted, and I was able to match nearly all of those 40 venues that I'd compiled with success. Okay, almost match. There's like a music venue match to a Sainsbury's here, and then there's like, yeah, some things that maybe shouldn't be in here. A music venue match to a business school, but it's pretty close. And I would say that the mismatches are points that are probably in the same building or that are very close. But what I want to show you here is that once I made that match from my custom data set that had no ID system to that entity that exists within Overture, I was able to assign a GERS ID to my custom list. So now it's got that ID. And now I can attach to it all of the attributes for those places that we have in our Overture data set. Websites, phone numbers, you name it. And if I were to take this a little further, I would probably dig around for an open data set about some of the historical buildings that my friend told me about. I noticed that some of them had a rating for their level of Victorianness. I'm getting that totally wrong, sorry. But that would be a really wonderful next step, and then to see how that matched up with our buildings data set as well. So there you go. There is my City Varieties Music Hall. My friend told me it was on Swan Street, and I've attached some Overture properties to it. This is a very limited set of data, and I'm showing you only a small subset of the properties that we could attach to it. So Overture's members are already doing this, and shout out to Address Cloud. That was, there you go, all in on GERS from the beginning. Even when we were saying, oh, who really wants to talk about GERS? The Address Cloud people said, oh, we want to talk about GERS. So they've been incorporating this into their pipelines and really tackling this thorny problem of data interoperability and matching data sets that are particular to their business, not just in the UK and the US, and now they're looking to do this in other parts of the world. S3 is also an Overture member. They're doing this internally and making this available as feature data sets. We have a lot of regional city governments who want to start playing around with Overture data. So I think we'll probably rely heavily on our team from S3 to help get them ramped up to provide support if they want to assign GERS IDs to these data sets, and to really help them connect the vast data that lives in the S3 ecosystem to data sets that have been GERSified. TomTom is also an Overture member. The cool thing that they're doing is attaching real-time traffic data to road segments in Overture using those GERS IDs. And that is a gross simplification of what they're doing. Transit is not my specialty, but we've got some great blog posts up about that. So very briefly, I mentioned that GERS is not just the stable ID. It's the ID, it's the reference map, it's the registry of IDs, it's the matching algorithms. And we've already started generating these artifacts we're calling bridge files that allow folks to look at the ID that was published, go into the sources property. It's a nested property with lots of goodies in there, and find the ID from one of the source data sets, or multiple source data sets. In some cases, buildings in particular, we're getting the footprint and the height of the building from two different sources. We also have worked with users in our ecosystem to develop bridge files to external data sets. Let's say I grabbed restaurant reviews for Leeds from an open data portal, and it had their proprietary or their custom ID system already attached to them. A bridge file to that data set might be a GERS ID to restaurant review ID link. How can you get involved? The data is free. It's available on AWS, Azure. It's also available in various data mirrors, Snowflake, BigQuery, Databricks, Fused. And we have some community partners that are helping us maintain those mirrors. So use it. We are really active on GitHub, including GitHub discussions. You can provide comments there. We are trying to make it easier for people to come build with us, whether they are members or not. GERS is one way to do that. We're also working on schema extensions because we want people to be able to build their own tools on top of our schema. That is coming next year. We've got the docs. We have a website called Explore if you want to just visually inspect the data sets. Cartographer I work with is very, very clear about the Explore site not being a map because we've punted on almost all cartographic decisions. It's just, a way for you to look at all the data sets and get a look into our schema and what's available there. You're invited to build with us. Thank you. And I've got lots of stickers over here. This was our early, we were doing some customer journey user experience work. Our early adopters, we started calling them data enjoyers, and that really caught on. Thanks again for having me here.
That was great. Thank you, Dana. So we've got time for some questions. First one from Address Cloud. Great.
Did I misrepresent anything?
No.
Fill in.
And a big hello from Matt, who sadly couldn't be.
I know.
So the bridge files, super interesting. Who's mastering those? Is that from the data supplier, or is it Overture, or is it a combination of the both?
That's a great question. So we're using the term loosely. The internal bridge files are part of our pipeline process. So those links from the published entity in the GERS ID to the ID system from the source data set is something that gets pushed out every month when we publish the data. We've supported some folks in generating external bridge files, but we're not really able to maintain those on our own other than providing a demo. Yeah. Hi.
Thanks very much for the talk. I like the way how within the GERS ID you list the sources. That's really helpful to get back to the data sets. How do you deal with hierarchy? Like if you have a building that has a music menu and a Sainsbury's in it, it's not a mistake to match those, but it's within a different hierarchy. How do you link different IDs?
That's a great question. So right now we don't have foreign keys in our data sets. So we're not explicitly linking the warehouse point to the building that has warehouse as a name. The idea is that maybe the warehouse moves 3 blocks away. The warehouse maintains its ID, but the building maintains its ID, but it might not have that warehouse name anymore. So they're separate entities. It gets tricky. We have lots of internal discussions about that. Does that answer your question? we often will have multiple points of interest within one building too.
Sort of how to relate to things like that building with this place. That's a whole extra set of information.
So we have Overture members who are doing that with various data sets. We have some demonstrations where we show how to do that. But we're not providing those linkages explicitly yet. It's on our long list of long product roadmap.
So I think we've got time for one more question. If shall I see one at the back?
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Leases within them. One big challenge we have here is you have IDs for a building and you've got multiple organisations and multiple forms. Is there like a sort of Z coordinate to that hierarchy? So you could say this is first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor within a building entity?
It's there in part. I mean, that's definitely something that we'd like to flesh out. we have number of floors in a building, we have the height of the building, but we don't have an explicit link between a coffee shop that's on the 4th floor, other than the address of that coffee shop perhaps indicating that it's on the 4th floor. But the data's there, and in theory, we could link it in that way.
Great. Thank you, Dana.
Thanks.